Welcome back to the channel. My name's Adil and today is all about comparing the stock sound system on a Ferrari F12 and comparing it to the new system that we've got going on into the vehicle. So let's jump into today's video. So it's now time to go through some of the product that we have in front of us. Not only we're going to be seeing the actual spec of the system that's coming out of the car with the JBL sound system, but I'm also going to be going through what exactly is going to be going into the vehicle. So we have, before we get too carried away, got one product missing from the system. So we're going to start from the bass all the way up to the clarity. So for bass in a vehicle, it's all down to basically a product called a sub. You would have seen in maybe back in the day, if you've had a system done before, kind of filling your boot with a massive sub, taking up all your boot space. However, times have moved on for some installers. Most installers are still doing that. However, you've seen by content on our channel already, I'm sure, is how we give that OEM plus look. So the Ferrari F12 system doesn't actually come with a factory fitted subwoofer in the car. All it has for bass is the mid bass, which is in the front door, which we'll move on to a little bit later. So for the actual sub in the vehicle, we're going to be installing a HERTZ Pro shadow mounted sub. I haven't got that here with me right now because the guys are working on the vehicle currently and they're using that product for doing the custom box. And also the reason why I also don't have it in front of me is because the stock system doesn't have one. So it's not really a fair comparison. The sub is basically a 10-inch design, shadow mounted sub that's going to be sitting on the left-hand side of the boot area. Basically, if you know the car very well, or you own one of these F12s, you'll notice that on the left-hand side, you've got a really large expanse on that side panel where there's basically loads of room, but actually quite difficult to actually store something into that area. So what we're going to be doing is building a custom fiberglass enclosure that will house that HERTZ Pro sub sitting on that left-hand side. And this is a really popular sub that we use in a lot of our supercars, and you will have seen it in a lot of the Aventadors that we've done as well. The sub sat on that left-hand side is going to not take up too much room at all, but also still leave all of the boot floor pretty much for loading space. So it's about kind of creating a blend with the OEM and kind of keeping that original look as much as possible. I mean, the rest of the systems going into this F12 is all going to sit in exactly the same locations. It'll only be the sub that will be kind of on display on that left-hand side, tucked away, kind of out of sight. It's very, very minimalistic by the time we're finished. So that is the sub. That's going to give you depth of sound. For those of you who maybe don't know too much about sound, or maybe this is the first time you're thinking about upgrading a car, I'll go through a little bit of an overview on actual spec of product and what each frequency does, just give you a bit more of an insight. We've got a couple of products here. We've got a tweeter, a mid-range, a mid-bass, and then a sub. And these are sort of the terminologies that we use when we're talking about car audio. A tweeter deals with all of the higher frequencies and that clarity that you get from a system. The mid-range kind of fills that gap between a tweeter and a mid-bass, and it actually plays a vital part in a system. And some cars don't actually come with a mid-range location, like the Focus RS that we recently carried out, but we added a mid-range location. So there's lots of ways to add a mid-range. It's not always a necessity, but basically the way I like to explain it is that a mid-range kind of takes the strain away from a mid-bass and tweeter and allows everything to play more comfortably. Then you've got a mid-bass, which kind of blends into your sub frequencies as well as into the mid-ranges, and it kind of gives you that depth and warmth of sound that you're probably missing right now. Then over to adding a sub into the vehicle, and that is all about that movement of air and basically adding depth of sound to the system. As you'll see, a tweeter is actually very small, and as you go up to a sub, you go to a 10 or 12, and that's commonly used, or we use an 8 even in the UK quite a bit. The reason why, basically, as you go up in speaker sizes, the system basically what it's actually doing with a speaker like this. So this is a 6.5-inch mid-bass for mid-bass transfer into a vehicle, and these are commonly used in the front doors, for example, like what we're doing on this F12. The mid-bass transfer that you're actually going to get, and the reason why this produces more depth of sound than say the mid-range, is because of the size of the cone. There's something also called excursion of a cone. So basically, in essence, how much that cone is moving backwards and forwards to create more movement of air, to create more depth. And that's why as you go to a bigger product like an 8, a 10 or a 12-inch sub, what's actually happening is the cone is bigger, which means the excursion, there's a potential, as long as the product's decent, there's a potential for that cone to have more excursion, creating more depth of sound and also more depth of sound. So hopefully that makes sense. That's a little bit of an overview about the different frequencies, because that's going to be very important in today's video that you understand those bits before we get into some more of the technical bits on the product spec. So firstly, let's run through then obviously we've been through the sub, we've been through kind of frequencies and what each product does, but now let's move over to start talking about the stock Ferrari F12 system. So in the front of the car, we've got a tweeter, which is again higher frequencies. We've then got a mid-range, and then we've got a mid-bass in the front door. The tweeter is sat kind of on your door card, just above kind of your arm. Then you've got a mid-range location, and this is a difficult product to get to. So this is actually mounted on the top of the dashboard. On the install video, you'll see us fully remove the entire interior, including the full dashboard removal on the Ferrari F12, and that is because of getting to this location of this speaker, the mid-range on top of the dashboard, but also to run our cable perfectly. That's the mid-range, which sits on top of the dashboard, and then we've got the mid-bass driver, and this in essence is playing all of the low frequencies because again, there is no sub in the Ferrari F12, and this is with the upgraded JBL system. So without a sub, there's no way you can have that movement of air. So back to where I was talking about a mid-bass, same as this. The size of the cone means more excursion, means more mid-bass transfer and more bass transfer into a vehicle. You just can't do it with a 6.5 or 7-inch speaker. It just does not kick as hard as say a 10 or a 12-inch sub will. A sub is also designed very differently to a mid-bass as well, and there's no sub in the vehicle, so lacking of a lot of depth just naturally by limitation on product that we have here in front of us. So that's the front end of the car. Then on the rear quarter panels, we've also got a tweeter and a mid-range, and these are actually pretty much identical. The mid-ranges are identical front and rear, so the mid-ranges on the dash are the same as the ones in the rear quarter. However, the tweeter is actually slightly different. There's not too much in it, very similar design. This one is just slightly lighter and also has a slightly smaller magnet by the look of things. So very, very slight differences there. In the rear, what we're actually going to be putting in, again, our client wanted, and this is a returning client of ours, so we know exactly how he wants it. This is having a system where it's a full OEM look towards the front of this vehicle. So we're adding in the HERTZ Melee Pro tweeter and the HERTZ Melee Pro 3-inch mid-range, which will sit in OEM locations. You might be thinking, well, how are we going to fit, for example, this speaker into this location? Because what you'll actually see here is there is a slight size difference. So with this, what we're actually going to be doing is 3D printing our adapters, and these are custom built to ourselves. We build them all in-house, we design them, spec them, and then this will allow this product to sit in the factory OEM location. This is really important because it means that there's no damage done behind the scenes. It means that everything can go back to stock. So when our client decides to sell this Ferrari F12 and move to another vehicle, he can actually take out this system and move it and move his investment into great sound over to the next vehicle. So the spec obviously of this factory system, we have got the JBL amplifier, which I'll move on to later. The new spec of the system, so what we're removing all this and we're putting in the HERTZ Melee Legend tweeter, which is absolutely phenomenal, and this will sit in OEM location on that door. Then we've got the mid-range, which is the HERTZ Melee Legend 3-inch, which will sit on top of that dashboard, again OEM location. 6.5-inch mid-bass driver housing it's going to be the HERTZ Melee Legend 6.5, so a full HERTZ Melee Legend set in the front. Rears are going to be the HERTZ Melee Pro, and that is all OEM look using our 3D printed adapters. I had a message on Instagram the other day, and I just want to touch on that. It was a kind of message about how to spec a system and what products to choose, which ones are best, which ones are worse, and kind of film a comparison video as such. However, pretty much impossible to do a full comparison video because every system is different. The more soundproofing you add, for example, the slightly different location on speakers, different adapters that you use, all of this makes a difference with sound. Product is essential. Like, you need decent gear when you're building and speccing a system. So like choosing your right spec for when you're choosing a system that you want installed is very, very important. You have to get it right because certain products will have certain limitations. Like the stock system here doesn't have a sub in the system. So hence why the vehicle is in with us. It lacks a lot of the top end and also that lower end. It just sounds very muffled. That's because it doesn't have, there's certain fundamental flaws. And this is where obviously when you're choosing your aftermarket system, if you don't spec a sub, you've also got to remember that there is a limitation there. So as good as we are always limited to a spec of system. However, there's certain clients out there that let us have free reign and guide people on and guide the clients on what they want in terms of that system. This particular system here was actually selected from our website with our client. So still very important that I go through everything with you. So on the website, you have different options in terms of pricing, spec, and timescales. And we'll move on to the most important one of there, which is timescales. But speccing a system is very important. So on the website, you've got different options. However, that comes through to a consultation form where I'll basically call you, or you come in, which is the best thing to do because you can actually experience different systems and you can hear it for yourself what the best system for you would be. But if you're not local, like many of our clients, they're all over the country, all over the world, we can still facilitate this. So we basically I'll call you and we'll go through the best option for you. Obviously, if you are international, we do need the vehicle here with us. So the system was selected from our website. So the most important part of the website and the packages basically is actually timescales. So the big thing with different installers across the country is how quickly they shove products into a car. And this is where it's going back to that Instagram message. This is where the important part is. It's not so, it is important about the product, don't get me wrong, like the product has to be spot on, but it is I'd probably say like 25% of its product, kind of the rest of it is all down to how it's installed, the time taken, the level of care, level of detail taken, not only to avoid damage on a car, but also to get the best out of that product. This product here, for example, this 6.5-inch mid-bass, I've seen it so many times that this particular product has been installed in a vehicle and we've redone the install. You would have seen some of our videos like the Lamborghini Gallardo that we did, where that actually had a system installed and I had to take it all out and replace the entire lot because the install just wasn't good enough. I don't want to be kind of bad-mouthing other companies, so we don't film everything that we do. You guys know if you've had work done by ourselves of the level that we work to, and we highlight everything in our install videos. We don't hide anything, it's all there for you guys to see. There's no point hiding anything if you're doing a decent job, in my opinion. So that's kind of a bit of an overview on the speaker configuration. So hopefully that's given you guys a little bit more of an insight into that. But later on in today's video, you will be hearing a side-by-side comparison between the two systems once the install is all finished. Moving in then to amplification, and this is really important. So this is a JBL amplifier. So it says JBL Professional on it. That is the amplifier that you get in the Ferrari F12. Same amplifier, I think exactly the same as the Ferrari FF system as well, and a lot of the systems in the Ferrari. So that is the factory amplifier here, and then we are basically removing that and putting in two new amplifiers. So limitations of this amplifier is the fact that you basically have no control. So sound is very much about controlling a system, controlling your speakers, and that is part of what we call a DSP. So a DSP is a signal processor, basically a bit of software in essence that I can basically tune a car with. So when we're doing a system, the two amplifiers that we're putting in is one 12-channel amplifier and one 1-channel amplifier. So the 12-channel amplifier, not only will this have a lot more power into the system, but also what this system is actually going to have a lot more control. So part of the 12-channel, it's basically what's called an AFM 12.14 bit. In English, it's 12 channels of amplification and 14 channels of processing power. This is what's called a slave amplifier, one channel amplifier. We're going to be adding that to that, linking them together. In essence, this system will be a 13.14 system. Hopefully that makes sense. But you might be thinking, well, if that's 12 channels, you haven't got that many speakers here. So what I'm going to be doing is running through how we're going to actually run this new system. So the 12 channel amplifier, channels 1 and 2 are the tweeters at the front, 3, 4 are the mids, 5, 6 will be the left-hand side mid-bass, 7, 8 will be the right-hand side mid-bass. Then you've got 9, which will run the tweeters, and 10 will run the other side of the tweeter for the rear. And then 11 and 12, which will run the mid-ranges at the rear. So that is basically all channels used up on the system. Then we've got the one channel which will run the designated sub. Obviously that product is not here. So all channels will be used, and this is really important. Again, many installers forget to do this. Well, they don't forget to do it, it's just lazy. There's no other way to describe it. It's just a lazy way of doing it. They run these sorts of systems, and there's certain budget, certain specs, we use these as well, but at this level of gear, crossovers shouldn't be used. It's just a big no-go for me. Like at entry-level systems, yes, I do use them. There's no problem with it, but whenever I'm adding a DSP, you'll find that I don't use crossovers. Reason is because you're buying a product as a customer, you're buying a product that has control, you're paying the extra money to add control. And then if your installer is using a crossover, you're taking away control. So on systems like, for example, the Ford Focus or some other systems that we've done in the past, yeah, I do use crossovers, but they're on systems without processors, and that then gives you more channels for your money, more bang for buck. However, these systems are another level, another step up. They deserve that same respect in terms of that install. And this is the bit that's hidden. You don't see any of this. This is down to how you install and how good they are. That is the amplification setup. The difference between this setup and this not only is a lot more power, and we can put the full specs of every single product listed on in the description if you wanted it to, because everything in terms of how each product is manufactured, what's inside each one, every element you could think of is listed on the AUDISON or HERTZ website. It is all there for you guys to check out. You try find out what on earth is in this. Good luck. Even if I gave you all the part numbers, there's nothing online that would tell you why that product is made with that design. There's just literally nothing online. And when you look on manufacturer's website, when you spec a system, you tick that box, right? When you're buying a car and you're buying a brand new car and you tick that box, or you go onto the manufacturer's website to learn a little bit more, you'll find literally 0 bits of technical spec, 0 amount of anything useful. All you get told is how many speakers you get. That is the factory system, the factory JBL system. Obviously, you guys are now gonna embark on a cool journey where you guys can actually hear the difference between the JBL stock system in this Ferrari F12 compared to what we're about to put into the car. Obviously, at this moment in time, the install is still being done at the moment, but yeah, overall, this is absolutely fantastic. You've now seen a bit of a comparison, hopefully learned a little bit more about car audio from the speccing of systems, what you get from factory, the limitations of it, and then moving over to what can be done with the car audio treatment. Ferrari F12 is complete, tuned, and ready for our client. So Just want to run you through, obviously you saw earlier in today's video the full spec of the system. As you can see, car is looking absolutely amazing in here, that full OEM look. You can't see the sub at all, and we've got in the armrest the little controller as well, so that's controlling sub level as well as source. So we've got one option to play through the little media screen that you've got on the right hand side of the cockpit here, or you've got the AUDISON beacon, which is that high-res streaming device to make it have an even cleaner optical source. So let's go through, let's sit back, relax, enjoy the new system that we've got in this Ferrari F12, and this kind of just makes the car absolutely the perfect spec, because not only does the car look amazing in its blue and tan combo, but also it now sounds the part as well. So let's have a listen to a couple of songs now.
But isn't it sickening? You can say you're in love with them, but it won't mean anything at all. But that's not your fault. Life's funny like that. You lose one thing, get another one back. You thought you knew, but it wasn't no fact.
Incredible.
Your whole life, but it was all an act. There's no meaning, but like in the best of ways, you could go 100 days without really doing anything, and still have the right to say, always my own damn fault that I fallen for you. We haven't even talked, still I'm obsessed with you. Rise above the dark, and I don't mean to be a whistleblower, but I know that being me
Sounds so different, so good. The clarity, just the power delivery of it is just amazing.
You tell him he's all you see, tell him you got
Staging's fantastic.
But he's not coming back again.
So hopefully you guys have enjoyed today's video. You have experienced the difference between the JBL sound system on the Ferrari F12 in comparison to the new system that we've just installed. So if you're interested in having a system upgrade, you know exactly what to do, guys. Drop us a message, any of our social media platforms, but also head over to our website where we've got specific packages for the Ferrari range as well. So thank you once again for watching. I'll see you on the next one.